In the Bible, there's a proverb that says, without vision, the people perish. That's absolutely a true statement. Unfortunately, here in the United States, we don't have a vision. If someone were to say, oh, yes, we do, I say, well, go ahead and show it to me. So we have a document called the National Security Strategy, and it is an unclassified document, very small, that just goes in a broad range of things we want to do. It in no way is a type of document that really looks at our interest. And I'll tell you why. When we went into Iraq in 2003, we never lost a military battle. In fact, we took down the fourth largest standing army in a relatively short amount of time. And yet 20 years later, we were still struggling with the issues in Iraq, not from a military standpoint, but from a political standpoint. We have multiple administrations that are happening. Everybody has a different idea of what needs to happen. And it goes to show you that our government is not synchronized in their activities. We can look at back in Vietnam, the exact same thing. The Americans never lost a battle in Vietnam, but the war was lost because they didn't understand the geopolitical and the information environment. So what do we really need when we talk about a grand strategy? What is it and why do we need it? Well, first, let me tell you about the different environments. You're going to hear tactical environment, operational environment, strategic environment. Does that all mean the same thing? Because I hear people use those terms often. The tactical environment could be we're taking a village or we're taking a compound and to arrest someone, to search a place, or whatever the case is. Although it's very detailed, the outcome is tactical. Whatever happens, you catch the guy, it's a tactical environment. Operationally usually means that the effects are at the country level. So it could be economic effects at the country level. It could be military effect, how we do a campaign against ISIS. That can be an operational effect. Then there's a strategic environment. And the strategic environment directly deals with actions or outcomes that could affect the U.S. national interest. The problem is we've never codified those. My question would be like, show me a document. Why don't you go ahead and show me what the U.S. national interests are? We don't have one. But all the great powers have one. They know where their future is. They know where they want to go. And they've written it down so that they have a plan to get there. So we're suggesting that the United States builds a grand strategy directive. What that means is you take the national interests and codify those. You write those down. We could say rare earth minerals. We want to have control of 35% or 40% of rare earth minerals by 2035. We want to have 70% of space communications dominance. We want to de-weaponize space. We don't let China overtake us in the economy. We think it's a national interest. We don't want China to threaten Japan. So you actually take all of these national interests, there's going to be quite a few in different areas, and you write those down. So regardless of administration that comes in or out, we have a document that lays what our interests are. Now, what happens with that? And I'm going to show you a 3-tier system today about that. The first is to build the document, to lay out the national interest. The second is now all the what I'll call the instruments of national power. That's the 3-letter agencies that everybody knows of, like the FBI, the CIA, the Department of State, the Department of Treasury, the Department of Energy, the Department of Agriculture. Like all of these are 3-letter agencies that are the implementation. Agriculture is dealing with agriculture. They're dealing with those activities assigned them. But what's the downfall now? A lot of times they're working independently on what they think is good for the administration or for the U.S., and that's great. But imagine if you had a document that lays out what our national interests are. So if Department of Energy or geological group can see that we want certain rare earth minerals. So now if I'm making a decision with a country in Africa, part of my agreement could be to know that we need that because it's in our national interest. We're not guessing. We're not hoping. When we signed a shipping agreements to have better maneuverability in the Malacca Straits, or we want to sign agreements with Indonesia, now we know why, exactly why. And we can argue the reason I'm doing this is because this national interest is codified, it's here, and I can directly affect that. What's happening now with China? Do they have one? Absolutely. So theirs is called the 2049 strategy. So quick history lesson, 1949, Mao Zedong took over China with the communist movement. And Chiang Kai-shek had to retreat and was pushed off to what we now know as Taiwan. And that's why we have a democratic organization in Taiwan, but China is communist. So what they want to do is in 100 years, that was 1949, so in 2049, they want to be able to plant their flag in the ground and say, we're the number one in the world economically. We're the number one military in the world. We're the number one dominant force for international relations. And they will use their power to push their objectives. There's no doubt about that. So that's their goal. And they have a strategic reason in how they're going to get there. 100 years of communism when they took over China. So the United States, we don't even have that document. The closest we came was the Keenan Papers, which was after World War II. Keenan was a State Department worker, but he knew Russia really well. And so he decided that how we would fight communism is to, wherever communism goes, whatever country they're going to go to, we would try the containment strategy. So the United States would surround that country for containment. So that's the closest we've ever had to really having a grand strategy, and even that is lacking at best. So we should build the grand strategy document or directive. The second is have the instruments of national power. That document would synchronize our activities so they're all working together. And so you have different parts of our government that, hey, one part sees that as in the directive, and then State Department is the political realm that helps negotiate that. And our embassy works in that country. And then finally, with I3 Solutions, we're building a model that will tell you what the power ratio is. So at any given time, every decision that's made in the world. So if China, since I'm using that example for natural resources, minerals, and they make a deal with Indonesia, well, it just altered your power ratio. So if we had said we want 35% of rare earth minerals by 2035 to have control of that, then as soon as China signs something, that alters that power ratio. If we sign something, that changes the power ratio. So you have to do that in every category that we have a national interest, so that then it gives feedback. Here's where we're at any time, that the government can see how close we are to the goals. So hopefully we will move that forward in the National Defense Authorization Act. Oftentimes it's called the NDAA, and we can bring in the House Armed Service Committee and the Senate Armed Service Committee to take a look at that. So understanding this geopolitical complexities, looking at complex problems, that's what we do. And it seems easy because everybody has an opinion, right? So hopefully we've shown over time that even though everybody has an opinion, doesn't mean that they really are experts at understanding these complex problems. We try to build an analytics team to address these for companies, government entities, military, and help them understand the problem and then find solutions. You know, there's actually 5 steps in problem solving, but everybody goes directly to solving the problem. The difference is we spend a lot of time at understanding the problem better than anybody else, so that then we can give advice of where to go that's accurate, that's reliable, and that ensures the outcome that's needed for a company, the military, government entities. Now, one of the key factors in this grand strategy is realizing that the U.S. doesn't do this alone. And although that some people might think that, we never have. And so what we want to do is lead, and we want to form alliances that are able and capable to align with us to compete against these entities or these countries, or alliances against us, that if they had the power, your lives would dramatically change. A lot of people would like to think that's not true or be an isolationist. And I understand isolationism. It never works. So as we move forward this grand strategy directive, we look forward to informing you about it, building it out, and having real results. One of the ways that we talk about instruments of national power is with DIME or DIME fill. So DIME is the traditional thing that most people know, which is diplomatically, information, military, and economics. We've actually added finance, intelligence, and law enforcement as additional categories, so it's called DIME fill now, even though most people just go off DIME. But those are the activities that make up our instruments of national power. It's a pretty common, it's been around around for a little while, probably 25 years, but that doesn't mean it's actually done effectively or synchronized. What I really want you to do is subscribe to the channel as we talk about geopolitical issues, current issues that are happening. Really want to build an audience of those analytical thinkers and people who are curious and want to contribute. I want you to put comments down below. I try to answer those comments. Some of those have to go offline. It's too long to put in the comment section a response. And make sure you tell people about what we do, and we look forward to talking to you.